The Retroid Pocket 4 Pro impresses in all the right ways. For $199, its sheer power rules in the mid-range price bracket it finds itself in. If, however, you do want unlimited power, the AN Odin 2 still offers up the best emulation when it comes to Android. But with prices starting at $299, that's an extra $100 you'll have to pay for the privilege. Admittedly, when it comes to the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, you will find weird kinks and a handful of areas where the Pocket 4 Pro could be improved. But, if you're after something that excels in all the right areas, this is the handheld to beat. The very first thing you'll notice when you pick up the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro is the new material. Retroid has gone with a more matte style of plastic, and while it won't be for everyone, I'm personally a fan of how it feels in the hand. This console doesn't feel like it's going to slip or slide while I'm gaming. For the D-pad, I'd wager Retroid has gone with one of the best ones out there. The edges have enough rock to perform minor inputs, but it's not so prominent that it causes accidental diagonal presses. There's also a good amount of bounce, which results in a satisfying click. Compare that with the ANEO Pocket Air, and you'll instantly feel the difference in feedback. The face buttons are another area I'm a fan of. I've just finished reviewing the AN Odin 2, and while I love that device, the rounded face buttons are some of the most uncomfortable I've ever used. With the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, the buttons are still small, but the flat tops mean prolonged presses don't stick in your thumb. Moving over to the sticks, I'm convinced Retroid has gone with the same type used in the AN Odin 2, or at least something very similar. They do feel slightly slimy, but I got used to that after a few hours. What matters here is that they're concave, meaning your thumbs rest in the stick rather than on top. The end result here being sticks that offer more precision in every type of game bar racing games. I will admit, the placement is going to cause a ruckus. When playing games like Call of Duty Mobile, I found moving around more awkward than usual, and I've been trying to work out why. I think it's due to needing to keep my left thumb in place lower down on the handheld. During a match, my right thumb constantly switched between the right stick and the face buttons whenever I needed to jump or crouch. With my left thumb, it spent more time on the left stick with less of a reason to move it on and off. If the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro went with an Xbox style controller layout, that's asymmetrical stick placements, I think that would put less pressure on my left thumb. But as we've got a symmetrical layout, my left thumb feels kind of awkwardly placed. It's not a problem for most retro games and platformers, as your left thumb will likely be rested on the D-pad. I'm sure this is something I could get used to, but for first-person shooters, I'd still rather play them on my Odin 2 and put up with those awful face buttons. Take a look at the top of the device, and that's where you'll find the triggers, and this is where things get a little tricky. The Pocket 4 Pro has stacked shoulder buttons, which is a good thing, and the triggers curve outwards and upwards. They're great, comfortable, and work well. That said, some users have reported problems with the internal trigger spring breaking. If you do suffer any issues like that, be sure to email Retroid. I've put the email address in the description below, and they'll send out all the things you need to fix it yourself. From what I've seen, the process is fairly simple, and for what it's worth, mine hasn't suffered any problems just yet. Retroid has also said this problem is fixed in new units, so I'm hoping that's true. Thanks to the inclusion of the Dimensity 1100 chipset, the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro is currently the best sub-$200 handheld out there. Compared with what else is available at this price point, it's quite comfortably the most powerful handheld too. But that chipset does very much have a ceiling. While the Odin 2 can run Switch at a playable standard, the Pocket 4 Pro struggles when it comes to high-end emulation like that. Lightweight Switch games will work, but as Yuzo is designed with Snapdragon processors in mind, and you can't sideload custom drivers, there's currently no way I've found to get 3D titles running. Indie games, sure, but if you want to play Mario Odyssey or Zelda, your best option is just to buy a Switch. It's not all bad news though. The Pocket 4 Pro is still a strong offering in its own right. For old school retro, even with widescreen hacks installed, the Pocket 4 Pro flies. Although that's kind of a given nowadays, isn't it? How does something more complex like PS2 and Dreamcast fare? That's really where the Pocket 4 Pro comes alive. Dreamcast works near flawlessly, and PS2 works for around 90% of games with upscaling set to 1080p and widescreen hacks enabled. The super complex games will struggle, but if you want to play the popular classics, they're more likely than not going to work. It's the same for GameCube as well. There isn't quite enough power in the Dimensity 1100 chipset to run everything with zero issues, but a large enough chunk of the back catalogue will work in 1080p with minimal fuss. So, what's going on under the hood? It's all eyes on that Dimensity 1100 chipset. Compared with the Retroid Pocket 3's Unisoc Tiger T618 chip, the Dimensity 1100 outperforms it in just about every way. In a quick example, the Unisoc chip comes with a Geekbench 6 singles core score of 471. The Dimensity, meanwhile, over doubles that score at 1107. It's the same result when you look at multicores as well. Simply put, the Dimensity 1100 is a perfect choice for something like the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro thanks to its mix of power and affordability. The Android 13 operating system works well, for the most part anyway. Retroid has included a game launcher for booting up select apps, and while it's not as clean as the Odin 2's very similar launcher, it does the job well enough. What I will say is it's great having everything front and centre, but boy do they make some weird choices. B and A, the buttons you'd normally use to launch an app or a game, bring up the app info panel when clicking on an app. So to launch something, you actually need to press the Y or the X button. Honestly, the mind boggles at such a bizarre choice. It's not the end of the world, I know, but when you switch between devices and your muscle memory fades, it will annoy you. Retroid also included a secondary ROM launcher, which is a bit of a pain to configure, but boasts a more Switch-like layout. When it works, it looks great, but I found myself booting into emulators rather than launching ROMs directly a little too frequently. It's a nice idea in principle, but I think I'd rather wait for something like Emulation Station to become more reliable or go with something like Daijisho. If you're an Xbox controller user, there's an option in the settings menu to change the face buttons from A to B, which is a pretty nice consideration. This does end up coming back to bite you though. When I was playing Super Mario World, B then became a spin jump rather than a regular jump. I can change the controls in RetroArch, but I'm not sure how many people are going to want to do that for every single emulator. It's much easier just to accept B as the main action button and deal with it. As far as upgrades go, the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro towers over the Pocket 3 with ease. The increase in power paired with a clear screen and 8GB of LPDDR4 RAM means this handheld is capable of much higher emulation feats than its predecessor. It won't outperform the AN Odin 2, but given its cheaper price, these two handhelds aren't competing in the same space. In short, if you're after a device that can play up to PS2 and GameCube along with a host of Android games like Fortnite, at a price that isn't quite in the premium category, the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro comes very easy to recommend, and I'd even go as far as saying this is the mid-range handheld to beat. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like, and if you'd like to subscribe, that would be awesome. Until next time, see ya.